Start streaming. So it's funny. Earlier, what I usually do is I set everything up, and I try to be done by like 7:30, so I can go eat dinner, take a shower, hang out with Serena for a bit. And I always set up YouTube, and I get on YouTube, and YouTube's like, can't start the stream. Sorry. I'm like, well, that's not good. And so I try again. Nope, can't do it. And I saw something that said like try your freeing your cookies and all this mess. So I opened an incognito window, which is no cookies, no history, no nothing, and tried it in there. Doesn't work. So I pulled out the Mac that I have and tried it on there. Logged in as PTM. If you see some emails that say, "Hey, somebody logged in from PTM in a weird place," that was me. But it was
no worries.
Yeah. And tried it on there. It's like, nope. Can't do it. I'm like, uh-oh. Did we say like a cuss word and we weren't supposed to or something? they've blocked us. But negative. I was just like, all right, well, at this point, it'll be showtime and it'll either work or it won't work. So, you know.
Fair enough.
But let's get this thing tweeted out. Is live. Let's COTA. That's what I called this one. Go
ahead and get this muted as fast as possible. There we go.
Let's see. There we go. We've got that done. So, just chilling out at this point. I believe we are all good. Cool. Capture moments as they happen. No, I don't need all these bells and whistles, YouTube. Thank you. Let's see. Oh, I got all kinds of stuff to talk about. We'll have a little bit of fun at the top of the show. I put the intern in the show notes, but that was really funny when I walked over because he had that teak shirt on. And I'm like, you go to Georgia Tech, right? He said, yeah. I said, we believe that the essential elements of true brotherhood are love, charity, and esteem. Love that binds our hearts with a sturdy cord of fraternal affection. He starts laughing. I'm like, yeah, me too. I'm one of those. So that was fun.
Well, I started reciting it when you texted me that, and that is as far as I could get confidently.
I believe that's as far as I can get. I need to look it up. I'm betting if I look up like the next 5 words, I'll be able to get the next paragraph. And if I look at, you know what I mean? It's kind of like start the song for me and I'll finish it.
Yep, I know what you mean.
So yeah, but that was pretty funny. Let's see. Get everything set up here. Make sure I got that. And is that the? Yep, that's the sound effects. That's looking good. And then over here, that's looking good. So, yeah. But yeah, the way his face is like, oh, geez. Apparently they still do tug. That's the thing.
Good.
Yeah. And I told the intern's boss, I was like, hey, just found out me and the intern are fraternity brothers, so we'll get along. And if you need anybody to haze him or set him straight or anything, just let me know. I got no problem walking over there and being like, dude, you're a teak. Deal with this.
Right. This isn't the hardest, most adverse thing you've faced yet.
Yeah. He said he was like
or
high
before
1600 something, which means there's only been, quote unquote, 400 people between, me and him, which is, I don't know, maybe surprising in 15 years. Maybe not.
Well, if you think about it this way, the 6th years when I got there were in the 1080s, so they were just short of 100 ahead of me.
Yeah.
So if you think...
It's only like 20 or 30 a year, right?
Yeah, at most.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe he's an old guy at the house. I don't know. I'll get to talking to him. He's kind of quiet. I figured he would regale me some stories, but maybe I need to start. I asked him if he knew what the cave was. He had no idea.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of that. There's a lot of what we were that's not there anymore.
Mm-hmm. That's all right. I did ask him if he's ever had to hold a match while doing what I just did, and he said, "Oh yeah." I was like, "Have you ever had to hold a dime?" "Oh yeah." I'm like, "All right, that stuff survived."
Yeah, dime's rough.
Dime is rough. I told him I was the fastest paragraphs in the West for a little while, and I've done the dime a few times, but that was a tough one.
Yeah, how many times did you leave with that weird little third-degree burn on the tip where you swapped matches?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. People that are watching now are like, what?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, it is what it is.
It's a thing at this point. Well, sir, are we ready to get started?
I don't see why not.
All right. Welcome, YouTubers. Hang out
I
with
got
us.
an early morning for old Drewski.
Ah, yes, sir. I've nowhere near as early, I'm sure, but I've also got some early meetings. But anyway, let's do it. Here we go. We are recording now. Welcome, y'all! That's right. This is the Pregame Engineer Tuck Air Racing Podcast, episode number 290. It's Tuesday, May 18th, 2021. I'm Tuck Air Rusty Wallace in the PETM Podcast Studio in Atlanta, Georgia. This podcast is sponsored by you. That's right. You go to patreon.com/PETM. Join the What You Drink Club for as little as $1 a month. Get that free koozie. Best part is, every cent this year, we're going to donate to sponsored drivers. So join the PETM posse today. Be a part of the sport you love. This week's show brought to you by our official sponsors at the $5 and up per month level. Here we go. Aaron Bearden, Robert Kathleen, Coleman, Clay, Matt, Kevin, Ryan, Kiefer, Patrick Cleary, Jeff Brown, Brandon Crowd, Kathleen McDonald, Brandon Carl, Rika Porter, Julie Bosley, Eddie Good, Third Young Motorsports, David Mullins, Patrick Johnson, Brett Morris, Crystal Smoke, Fred Rosado, Chad Knapp, Stacey Coleman, Lisa Chinada, Rick Houston, Sarah Anbari, Evan Roller, Matthew Bishop, Harry Bolzania, AJ Evangelista, Janet Scott, Les Miller, and Jumpy Bob. Woo! Got it. One time. Ladies and gentlemen, from the PETM North Carolina studio, pregame engineer Andrew Sherwin. What's up, dude?
Fresh off of some Mexican Tuesday.
There you go. Well done. I like it. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, so I mentioned, or I did the read, and I did all the names and everything. Patrick Johnson, if you're listening, I texted you earlier. Text me back. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, let's get this thing started. Just me and Sherwin tonight. We're just going to have some fun. We're talking Dover. We're talking COTA. We're talking who knows what. But y'all know what we talk about first. Sherwin, what you drinking?
Well, I took a couple of weeks off, but I'm back to the firewater.
There you go. Dude, I'm about to bring something in frame that it might make you barf, actually, thinking about it. But dun, 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 dun.
Oh, no, definitely not make me barf. No, I miss the Moosehead.
Moosehead. Yeah.
The bitterest, most delicious of the Canadian lagers.
That's right. Look at the label and everything. They've changed it up. Y'all, we used to drink this back in college. Don't ask me how old I was, but we built our Christmas tree out of these things with 3,000 something of them. So that was a staple from, what was it, from like August until December. Like, if you caught somebody not drinking a Moosehead, you're like, dude, we got to build a tree. You got to drink some Moosehead. And they might be like, I can't have, I just needed something different. And then you'd slap them in the face and hand them a Moosehead.
Yeah, well, October was the big push, right?
Mm-hmm.
Particularly as we headed into homecoming.
Yeah.
We would use homecoming funds to supply. With the caveat that if you threw one in the trash can, you were going to get a stern talking to.
And probably a cherry belly.
It was not going to be good, especially if you were a brother.
Yeah.
Now, girls, okay, you might forget, throw one in there, fish it out, go set it on the table.
I'll tell you what it tastes like, because I only have one every couple years or something. I'll see it, and that's what happened here. I was walking by, and it was one of those, like, walking, looking at beers, and you pass it, but then you stop, and you, like, put it in reverse, and you go, wait a second. I know what I'm getting. But yeah, it's funny. You taste it, and suddenly just memories. I don't know if y'all have this, anybody out there listening, but just the taste or the smell or something like that, and this taste, like immediately, boom, I'm transported back to working on the wreck. Stick welding a bunch of stuff together for no reason, and banging on a V8 motor trying to get it to work. It has to be at night, and you taste the beer, but then the next thing you do is you smell that smell of the stick welder and everything. Man, it's takes me back.
Yeah, well, it's like obviously we've fancied ourselves beer connoisseurs over the years. And then, you like, man, you haven't had a beer in a while or just a regular old beer. And that Miller Lite long neck is just staring at you in the fridge at the gas station. You're like, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
People are like, oh, you drink that Rock Gut Light? And it's like, I don't think you understand the nostalgia involved here. I'm not drinking it because I think this is the best beer on the planet. I'm drinking it because it brings back memories.
I'll tell you the one that doesn't bring back memories, as many as we had. Natty Light still tastes like pee-pee.
You know what? And I don't even think now, I think I can totally suspend all bias in terms of being a Miller Lite guy versus a Bud Light guy. I'm telling you, if there's a cooler that's half Natty Light and half Bud Light, I'm picking that Natty Light up every single time.
Well, there's that. Sir. Excuse me. So last week I talked about the camping trip and all the gas stations being out of gas here in the Southeast and whatnot. And we got on a phone call, like on a Zoom with friends on Wednesday evening to talk about whether or not we were actually going to go, because nobody can make it there and back based on how much gas they had. And so I killed them with math, like how many stations do you expect there to be, how many blah 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 blah, all this stuff. Now let's cut that in half, and we still expect to reach at least like 8 or 10 gas stations that got gas. So anyway, convinced the whole group. Last week I said, mark my words, somebody will cancel. Well, I'll eat my crow, because everybody showed up. Now, I went first. I went the night before, and then I reported back to everybody, oh, there's gas in Clayton. There was like 3 stations in Clayton, 1 in Cornelia, 1 in Dillard, all these North Georgia places that all had gas. So it was like, guys, you ain't going to have no issue finding gas. So, get your butt up here. But I guess they weren't looking for any other excuses. We had a great camping trip up in Bryson City, North Carolina, and Sherwin. It was funny because I set everything up, and like we had a huge fifth wheel trailer next to us, and he comes out and I said, "Man, that's a beautiful trailer," and he goes, "Man, I love this trailer, but your setup over there with the tent is awesome." I'm like, "I know." I got this thing down, brother. Like there ain't no worries here at all. So we had a good old time, man. We visited some of the breweries that were local. We went on a few hikes, saw some waterfalls, big old lake. What can I say? Sat around the campfire, drank Moosehead. It was a good old time. So enjoyed
well, how
the
far
old
is Bryson City from Junaluska?
I do not know exactly where Junaluska is.
Well, it's on our trip to Bristol. All that stuff is basically on the way.
So I don't know if you remember, but like in Silva, North Carolina, so Lake Junaluska is about 38 miles. But in Silva is when we always take a right. Like that's the first time we even turn after getting on 85, which turns into 985, which turns into like 441 and all the rest of that mess. But the first time we actually have to like make a fork, we go right toward Asheville. And if you go left, that takes you to Bryson City.
Ah, okay. Yeah. I know I've seen the sign.
Yep. And that was the thing. I told Serena, my wife, I said, I think I know how to get there. Let me try it. And we get all the way up there, and I'm like, okay, Asheville, I know I go to the right, but I believe I have to go to the left. And the next sign I see says Bryson City, gigantic letters. I was like, oh, yeah, I remember this sign. I just never really pay attention. So there we go. But, yeah, it's right there. A lot of good mountains and hiking and everything else. So what can I say? had a good old time. Set up what what should really be the PETM trademarked campsite. You know, I went and got the new canopy. We left the last one at Darlington after all that rain and thunderstorm and everything. It tore it down finally after like 10 years, and we left it there. So I ordered me a new canopy, same exact one. Set it up, set up the camp, set up the tent like right next to it, so the front door of the tent goes into the canopy. Set up the. I don't have a new lawn yet, but I've got the big. You remember we bought that outdoor
that carpet thing. I saw it in your picture.
Yep, got that. The table. We got the camp stove. The hanging. What do you call it? Lantern. All that mess. Brought enough wood for like 16 people, and yep, it was on. So all it reminded me of is that I'm ready to go camping at the racetrack again, man.
Tell you what, it's like every 3 or 4 days, Evan Roller, who lives down in Cornelius, which is only like 7 miles from me, he's like, hey man, I know you're not all down with that driving stuff so much anymore. He said, you want to ride down here and jump the truck? We'll hook the bumper pull up and head on down to Atlanta. And I said, well, I'm scheduled to work that weekend, but there are negotiation tactics that could be in play.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, yeah, we'll just get a full hookup. We'll have water and air conditioning.
Oh, my gosh.
All right. Well, and he's got a nice little bumper pull. It's not quite as big as Andrea's.
Okay.
Up there in Michigan, it's it's the smaller version of that kind of bumper pull.
Okay.
But certainly would sleep 3 adult males just fine.
Yeah. Man, that's cool. Absolutely. Let's figure it out. So, but yeah, had a good old time camping this weekend, and like I said, the only thing missing was a racetrack right behind it. Where, boy, if I could have gone to a race one night, that would have been super. So, but is what it is. Sherwin, I've been. It's funny because we were kind of talking work. Me and Sherwin were in the pre-show here, just hanging out and whatnot. But I had written this one down because somebody said this to me. I don't know if anybody else out there has like little pet peeves, but that you don't call people out on. But one of mine is the phrase "may or may not." Like that one crawls under my skin, and I don't know, if you're watching YouTube right now, send me yours as well. But somebody says, well, we may or may not have a problem. I'm like, well, I may or may not be pregnant. Like both of those those are the two options. So give me some more information. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I like to use it as a setup for a joke as opposed to not describing some sort of situation that needs resolution.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Well, we may or may not. Blah, blah, blah. So,
it's like, well, I might have forgotten everything I need, but I may have remembered everything I need.
One of those is true for sure. So, yeah. Anyway, sir, what'd you do this weekend? Anything fun?
I watched as much racing as I could stay awake for. Yeah. I just watched sports, slept in the chair a lot. Man, weekends are weird. I'm just exhausted by the end of the week. I just sleep. And part of it's because I go to bed early and actually sleep really good for about 6-7 hours. And then I roll over. I'm like, man, I guess it's time to get up. And it's like 5:45. I'm like, huh.
Yeah.
What am I going to do now?
Roger in the chat says, with all due respect, before the unrespectful comment, with all due respect, you're an asshole. Like...
Right. It's like, okay, well, the very next thing out of your mouth is fixing to be rather disrespectful.
Mm-hmm.
Who was it? There was a comedian that's you can't start a phrase or a sentence or a comment with all due respect, because there's clearly no respect in what's about to happen next.
Right. Maybe the respect that is due is 0.
Like, well, you could just stay and say it instead of saying with all due respect. So, all right, I'm fixing to say something mildly to grossly offensive, and then we can talk about that after I say it.
Right. Disrespectfully, I believe that you suck.
Right.
I'll dig it. I dig it. Well, Sherwin, I think it's time to start it up. Let's tear it down. Here we go. Well, sir, it was Dover. What'd you think about the race? Let's start there.
Well, golly, was there a lot of traffic on the old tweeter, which is about standard these days? What I would say is I saw a whole lot of cars really dancing around, just like we did at Darlington.
Mm-hmm.
And very similar types of chatter between both races. I thought we had, obviously you had some cars nail the setup.
Yep.
But you still had what you wanted, which was cars that were mildly to sometimes grossly out of control.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what we like.
Isn't that what we want? I guess I don't know.
Pretty sure.
Yeah.
Sherwin, I don't know what kind of clairvoyance came over me, you, and Brandon last week. But Brandon picked Larson, who finished second. I picked Chase, who finished third. You picked Byron, who finished fourth. That's a 2-3-4, rounding out the Hendrick top four, which is the first time that four drivers from the same camp have won or have boxed, done the superfecta since Roush in 2005 at Homestead. But Roush had 5 entries in that race. Their fifth went 21st. So this is like the first time in, we'll call it modern era. There may have been something somewhere, but nobody's ever done this before. That was crazy.
It's certainly been a long time. A long time.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about the super teams, Hendrick has only had 4 teams since, what is it, 03 or 04? Somewhere around in there when they finally added the 4th team with, I guess it was Nadu in the 25. I don't know. There's no reason to dive too deep into that. But, there's an order of magnitude associated with this occurrence. I think you saw that so far earlier in this week in the way they celebrated it.
Yeah. Yeah. And what you talked about people having dialed in. What did Hendrick have dialed in that nobody else did? And by the way, Mr. Hendrick, old Rick, was saying that the last 100 laps was the most nervous he had been in his racing career. And all this happened, I think Gluck pointed it out. This didn't happen with Jimmy Johnson, Dale Jr., Mark Martin, or Casey Kane, pick one, and
Jeff Gordon. Yeah.
This happened with Bowman, Larson, Byron, and Chase.
Yeah, the youngest super team ever assembled.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what did Hendrick have that nobody else did?
I don't know, and I'm sure they'll never tell us, and they shouldn't. But clearly, all 4 of those cars had something that was the same.
Mm-hmm.
That all 4 of those drivers liked.
Yeah, yeah. Now Bowman got the win there. Still he's not a lock for 2022. And the 48 car has sponsorship, so it's not like he can't get a sponsor.
Well, I saw that you wrote that. I don't know. I wouldn't accuse you of being disingenuous, but I mean, seconds after he's done setting the pavement on fire with burning his tires off the car, he's like, "It's done. We just need signatures. That's it."
Yeah, and that's and I wrote that next that Rick says it's a formality at this point. Negotiations. He did say negotiations are going on right now. Do you think Bowman has a little bit more leverage after this one? Hey, how about bump me another 0 on the end of that one? Maybe not that far, but maybe change that 0 to a 5.
I don't know if it changes his leverage as much as it changes his overall status in the sport.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure how much I believe about the information you can find out there about what a driver's salaried compensation is. Perhaps it gives him an opportunity to negotiate a slightly larger piece of the prize pie, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
because that technically does not get included. It's kind of like the charter money. Like that's an end of the year deal.
Mm-hmm.
So it's never in none of that's ever written into the contract. The salary is based on what the sponsorship commitment is. And so I don't know. I mean, I would expect at this point Bowman's probably, well into the crooked number millions per year in
Right.
base salary.
Right. Right. Man. Yeah. That's like you said it's a formality at this point. Maybe negotiating the number that's after the crooked number. Maybe that's part of it. But I think
Or maybe it's something. So one of the things that Hendrick has the ability to do, and one of the things that he did with Dale Earnhardt and Jeff and some others is okay. He's like, all right, well, you definitely solidify the fact that you can do this thing that we're doing here in this sport. So in lieu of me changing numbers on what a 3-year salary commitment looks like, how about I throw you a dealership?
mm, hmm how how much do you
Something
think
along those lines.
how much do you think this has to do with like I mean whatever he sets here because these guys are so young. This is probably Hendrick Motorsports for the next decade, right?
I was
And
going to say, I thought about that all day yesterday and, all evening Sunday. I'm like, man, if you're looking at, so Bowman's the oldest at 20, or Larson, I guess, 28.
mm,
And if you're talking about these guys are going to race until they're 40,
hmm
you're talking about 12, 13, 14, 15 years
right, right.
with this same lineup,
And so it's kind of like
potentially.
the worst kept secret. What is he going to hand off to Jeff Gordon as Hendrick Motorsports? And he wants the next dynasty. That's legacy for him, right? And so maybe that goes into how long it's taken to get to deals here. Is I want to make sure that what I leave with is something that I can be solid. What do we call it? The pick of the century kind of stuff,
Yeah, and you think about it this way. So Gordon has long been lauded for his tutorship underneath Dale Earnhardt in terms of how the business of racing works. But then you got to look over at the fact that, basically Rick lost his son in a very short order to Dale losing his dad. So they kind of just sort of traded places.
Mm,
So what role is Dale Earnhardt Jr. going to play in Hendrick Motorsports? Is he going to be, that the guy that does the talking, and Jeff's going to be the guy that does the presidential CEO type stuff?
hmm
Like you got to believe they're both going to have some hand in the pot one way or another.
Right, right. And the other thing with this win is that now Hendrick is one win away from tying Richard Petty Motorsports record. And Larson had said, Mr. Hendrick mentions it almost every time I talk to him. Like this is part of Pinnacle legacy, etc. And I wonder, at some point when he passes RPM and he signs on these next drivers, that will be his legacy. That is what I did for the sport. Like, what else do we have to do at this point?
Yeah, it makes you wonder, selfishly, as a driver for Rick, do you want to be the one that gets the tying win,
Right.
or do you want to be the one that gets the one that puts you ahead?
I want the head one.
Yeah, so I wonder, or I mean, obviously you could do both. That's a lot to ask, but you could do both of those things.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. So hats off here to Rick Hendrick. What can you say? Sherwin, let's move to second period here. That was first period. Talking Dover. Second period, all the rage right now, and all the lips are tight. But Brad Kay evidently offered an ownership stake in Roush. That's interesting.
Yeah, I think that the hullabaloo today was people not understanding exactly what all these different words mean, because being offered an ownership stake in a company, or a leadership and ownership and ride stake in a company, is far different from, yeah, we signed a deal and I'm moving over.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, okay, so I believe wholeheartedly that regardless of who reported it, that offer does exist.
Mm-hmm.
It's been painfully obvious since Brad shut the doors on his trucks operation that he was not done being an owner.
Mm-hmm.
He just took BKR and he took it in and he turned it back into, um, not BKA, that was his, or Keselowski Motorsports or whatever, his dad's company,
Mm-hmm.
and turned it into BKM, Brad Keselowski Manufacturing, which I believe his brother has played a significant role in that.
Yes.
Parts builders for all different, all different industries, including racing, and the opportunity to connect those dots. Now, the piece of the underlying puzzle is the overreaching giant, kind of like we see Jordan come in, Pitbull come in. We're going to talk about some of that later. Is you got LeBron James is now mixed up in the Roush Fenway ownership
Yep.
group,
Yep.
and to get that piece of the marketing puzzle, you got to believe Brad's looking long and hard at that. If this is a real thing, it wouldn't shock me one bit to find out in August that this is done. I think what hinges on it now is, what is Newman going to do? Is he ready to be done? He certainly doesn't. He's not made any noises like he's ready to be done.
Right.
But the way Roush is sitting right now, yeah, they've picked the pace up a little bit, but boy, they don't look like they're ready to start a third car.
Right. Right.
Or restart a third car.
Right. It's interesting. So two things that you mentioned. One is Brad Kay's previous ownership. So I wrote in here that he's no stranger to ownership of a race team. So certainly, and his business acumen back when he was posting all those blogs, back when blogs was a thing. But he was very open and honest about what it cost, what it meant, all that stuff. It was fascinating reads because he was about the only person that was talking about that stuff in trucks. And so, it'd be very interesting and cool to see, if it's what kind of ownership stake it is, one. And two, you kind of mentioned, is Roush where you would want to have an ownership stake right now? Like, there's a lot of teams out there, we'll talk about it here in a bit, but there's plenty of other places that might be, what if Furniture Row were looking for somebody, or what if Front Row or Trackhouse, or 23XI is pretty much locked in on money wise at this point. But I feel like here's the, if you've got $100 to invest, do you want to invest it in Google, which is, yeah, it's going to grow and it's going to be fine, or do you want to invest it in something that might turn it into $10,000?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think, Brad is the right guy for this kind of challenge to rescue what was once an extremely proud, very fast organization.
Mm-hmm.
It makes sense. Jack's a Detroit guy. Brad's a Detroit guy.
That's a good point.
They're Ford through and through and through. It just, when Hendrick sort of didn't necessarily shut the door on Brad, but had the opportunity to re-sign Mark Martin when he was supposed to be the bridge to get to Brad, but Brad didn't have that just resume that rolled off the end of the counter and down the hall. That's when Brad said, well, I got to look elsewhere. And then he's been with Ford ever since, and obviously that's gone rather well. I think this makes perfect sense. That doesn't mean it's going to happen. I think it makes perfect sense.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, good point. And maybe it's I'm trying to think of bringing it back to stocks, somebody that's been a juggernaut that maybe Apple in the mid 90s or something when Steve Jobs came back and then threw him way over the line. So yeah, could be that kind of story.
Well, think about it from this perspective too. Is Roush has got that whole sports car business that doesn't get talked about all that much. The customization stuff with Mustangs, but he's also got a half interest in all the top tier Ford motors with the Yates partnership.
Mm-hmm.
So there's more than just the race cars on Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you see this one? That Chevy's building that new Racing Tech Dev Center in North Carolina soon. They had bought some building in Concord, which is like 35 minutes from you. But evidently they're using that for something else now. So looking for sites and stuff. So Sherwin, maybe there's opportunities coming to Mooresville somewhere close.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it takes to get from what I do to what they do and connect those dots. It certainly would be interesting to try to poke around and see.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, the couple of times that I've been over to our facility in Mooresville and drive by those two gigantic wind tunnels, and I'm like, well, that's interesting. Something's going on there. And it's all racing related. Somebody was trying to tell me that was all Kyle Busch, and I'm like, can't be all Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch can't build two wind tunnels.
No.
No, you're talking about some, deep into the 8 figures to build a good wind tunnel.
Yeah. What's interesting about this is that they're talking about it being a racing center, which I think is really cool for Chevy to be investing in something like that right now. Say what you want about racing and the future of race cars and motorsports and whatnot, but their willingness to invest in an entire center, I think in a few ways it is keeping up with the Joneses with like TRD type of stuff, but it's a big opportunity for a lot of people, and then also just investment in not just in NASCAR but in racing in general, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think what they're discovering, the big three, obviously, the only three that we have right now is that, man, if you're not there where all the teams are, you can't take advantage of all that extra contract work that's available. Because if you're Chevrolet, you only have so many teams that need wind tunnel time or need dyno time or whatever. A lot of these teams have that stuff anyway, not wind tunnels, but certainly dynos. But there's all that extra, to your point, like racing center type stuff. Like, there's all these feeder series that need to buy parts, and they need technology, and that's how you build from the ground up. You don't build from the ground up in stock car racing out of Dearborn or, Detroit area or whatever you want to call it, Forest Hills, wherever. Mm-hmm. You need to be in Piedmont area, North Carolina.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned Kyle Busch earlier and wind tunnels, and I'll try to make a joke here, but I don't think he needs 2 wind tunnels. He's got one big one on the front of his face. When it comes to this whole I am athlete deal that he did this week, and boy, he just let loose, didn't he? So the big news there was calling out Joey, throwing shade, calling him Two-Face. Joey followed up by saying, "That's cute. Let me know when you want to hear my side." I thought this was interesting because he said Joey has this big smile, big whatever off the track, and yeah, that's great for like charity and sponsors and blah blah blah. And then on the track, he's a total a-hole. And I prefer that somebody, if you're going to be an a-hole, be an a-hole. If you're going to be nice on the track too. And I'm not sure I totally agree with that. Racing's just you enter a different mindset. You enter a different deal. How many of us are different in the general public than we are at work? I can certainly say I am. I go to work, put on work face. Let's do this. Let's get this thing done, guys. Let's blah, 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 blah. So it's hard for me to say that I agree with him 100%, but he's also, one of the greatest race car drivers that's ever raced cars. So who am I?
Well, of all the people to say something like that, Kyle needs to take a big old peek in the mirror. I mean, if Kyle had been paid back for every time he screwed up on the racetrack, he'd have a lot more wrecked cars on his hands. Um, you know, Joey is the same asshole on the track every time he gets on the track. Okay, we can say that about Newman. We say that about Joey. There's not a lot of difference. There's a little bit different approach probably, but they're the same guy. Once they buckle in, I'm at work. It's the same reason why when you do Myers-Briggs or whatever personality study at work, that you score differently than if you took that test at home and said, what am I like in my personal life? Well, you know, at work, I'm the guy that got sent to the principal's office just a couple of months ago because I said the F word too loud. And there's one HR person in the whole daggum front office who really doesn't like that word. So I had 45 minutes of lectures about how that's not a very professional way to approach work. And it's like, because I said it and I got mad. You know, not like the kind of mad I get, you know, when I'm around you and our friends, a whole different kind of mad. Because it's work.
Mm-hmm.
And I, you know, I let loose a string of colorful language. And of course she heard it because I'm loud. I'm louder than everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And she comes in and says, you know, that word, that's I looked at her, I said, there's a door right there. This is our room. I said, this is an F-bomb friendly room.
Yeah.
And you know what my boss told me the next day? I don't know if I said this on the podcast or not. I went in there. I went ahead and got ahead of the game. Always a good idea. And I said, look, I got like 40-minute lecture on words. And he's like, well, said, you got a door on your office, don't you? I said, yeah. He goes, maybe use it.
Oh,
I got you.
Fair enough.
Like, he don't care.
Right. Yeah. It's funny, you know, Christmas parties is where this really comes out, because it'll be, you know, me and my wife at the Christmas party, and people will be like, what's he like at home? And she's like, well, he's a big old softy. He doesn't like any responsibility. He and it's like, whoa, really? Because at work he wants all the responsibility. He wants all the stuff. Like, give me all the things, you know, and control and everything else. And outside of work, it's like, no, I don't want to do that. No, I don't want to do that either. I just kind of want to play video games and, you know, go on fun vacations and stuff. And I imagine I'm just going to be a total, like, I don't know what to call it. Like I think about this sometimes, like in retirement, what am I going to be like? And it's just going to be, oh, we're going to go travel and we're going to go do hikes and stuff and have fun and whatnot and be done with responsibility for a long time. Well, for the end of of what matters there. So it's funny how, you know, just again, that whole work versus play. And I wonder, you know, how much of a thing that is that goes into this. So, for what it's worth, Kyle Busch, I'm not exactly on board. And like Sherwin said, maybe, you know, a little bit of look in the mirror. I don't know, but yeah, I thought that was interesting. And so,
well, I say that because I have defended Kyle tooth and nail as being a good human being.
Mm-hmm.
On the racetrack, he can be and has been problematic for now 2 drivers that we have rooted for on multiple occasions.
Yeah.
And you kind of, over time, you let that go. But for him to single out someone else as being one thing on the racetrack and being another thing away from it, it's like, whew, you might need to do a little bit of self-evaluation there.
Yeah. Well, sir, from NASCAR on Reddit that I saw today, that Trackhouse Racing with Suarez is doing better right now than 23XI with or 2311 with Bubba. You know, it's an interesting thing. I wrote in the notes. Is this do we have too few data points right now, or is this like a trend and, you know, panic? I don't know what to say. What do you think? I'm wearing my Bubba hat today, by the way. There's his signature.
Nice. Got my Blaney hat on. Sorry, you asked me a question, didn't you? You. Sorry, I was reading the YouTube. I was trying to figure out what was happening.
Yeah. No, it's
Yeah,
all good.
ask me again. Let's
Trackhouse.
try this again.
Trackhouse with Suarez is running better.
Oh yeah. I read
Yeah.
the notes earlier. I think it's interesting, if nothing else.
Right. Interesting.
I think we may have underestimated Trackhouse's commitment to fielding a damn decent car. I suspect we probably have always underestimated Suarez. I mean, I don't want to compare him to anybody else because it's just not fair to do that, but brand new place, brand new world, brand new type of competition, thrown to the wolves, supposedly in two really, really good cars, didn't get out of them what was expected. You know how sometimes it doesn't work the way it's not always doesn't always click like magic.
Well, Roger just said in the chat, and I think this is interesting. He said Justin, meaning Justin Marks, is a better owner than Denny at this point, and I have no argument against that. And that's a good point. That as far as ownership goes, we just talked about ownership with Brad Kay and Roush and his old trucks team and stuff, and the responsibility there. I've found it interesting when they're asking Denny about the 2311 performance right now, and he seems to be what would you call it? Eschewing responsibility for current performance, and maybe that's fair. I don't know, but it's interesting to me because he's saying, we've got the equipment, we've been running top 10, top 5. But we need to have we need to have those finishes, if you will. We need to have a full race of that. But it's been interesting to me to read that as opposed to taking more responsibility in terms of we're not producing race cars that can finish. He believes he's got it.
Yeah, I agree. I really think that team is they may be the more impressive of the two for sure. We'll see by the end of the year and how we're supposed to judge that. But at the end of the day, good, bad, or indifferent, cuss words, yays, whatever. Suarez might be a better race car driver than Bubba. We don't know.
Mm-hmm.
We don't really know.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean they both couldn't win races in good cars. There's a lot of extenuating circumstance there, but I think when Justin and Myatt teamed up, and then they, I don't know how much of a role Suarez played in getting Pitbull involved, but obviously that's a big deal. Yep. I mean, you saw the race this weekend. They opened with Pitbull's, signature song,
mm-hmm.
and that's what they opened their coverage with. Well, I mean, that doesn't happen by accident.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know what to say. We'll see. We'll see. Maybe there's too few data points, whatever it is. But Justin Marks is showing that he's got it. And I really haven't seen a whole lot of interviews with him. And it's probably because Denny has the ability to do hot takes right after a race or something. And Justin can kind of be in the background for not intentionally, but it just is what it is. But yeah, I find that interesting. So, anyway, time for recess, Sherwin. Dale Jr. just had an AMA on Reddit. AMA is a Ask Me Anything. And, they asked him things about, like, his favorite wins and people that he'd love to have on his podcast, either alive or dead, whatever. But then there was a couple interesting ones. He is aligned with us, Sherwin, on whether or not a hot dog is a sandwich. He said a hot dog is a hot dog. It's an alternative to a sandwich. I think that's fair, and I think that aligns with us.
Yeah, that 100% a hot dog is not a sandwich. It is, in fact, a hot dog.
Okay. So the next one I had not ever thought about before. And someone said if you took two separate lasagnas and stacked them on top of each other, would you have one lasagna or two lasagnas? And Dale Jr. says you have one lasagna.
You have double-decker lasagna. Singular.
Singular. You have a lasagna. Well, there you go. There's a question. Hot dog is not a sandwich, and two lasagnas stacked on one another is indeed a single lasagna. I love that stuff.
Just twice the layers.
I have. I keep pushing this one off, but finally we get to talk about it. Indy 500 coverage team for NBC. What a lineup here. We have Jimmy Johnson, Danica Patrick, Steve Letarte, and Mike Tirico. And then pre-race is going to be Dale Jr., Rutledge Wood, and Jack Collinsworth. How cool is that?
That's interesting. I'm curious to see how Jack will do. For those who look at that name and go, who in the heck? Well, Chris Collinsworth been a mainstay on Sunday Night Football for a long time now. That's his son. Very smart kid. He's immediately jumped out of the Ivy Leagues into, being, a pretty premier analyst. I don't know how much of the gambling and the stuff and whatnot that he gets into, but he's going to follow in his dad's footsteps at NBC, and he's probably going to be a good piece for them for a while.
Yeah, and he did. Apparently, he did some of the Kentucky Derby coverage too. I watched most of that on mute right until it started, so I didn't get a chance to hear him. But that was he's multi-disciplined, kind of like a Mike Tirico, if you will.
Yeah, well, Tirico is like that calming. Tirico is the Mike Joy of everything except NASCAR.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
I mean, and Tirico's bounced around a little bit. He was a little bit bland for Monday Night Football, but he fits perfectly with all of these other things, these other NBC properties that exist, whether it's, I can't remember which golf tournament they have. I don't know if it's not the U.S. Open. One of the tournaments, he's there. He just keeps popping up in all these different properties that NBC owns. And he's just that calming influence that, just everybody settle down for a second. Let's talk about something that's real. And then let's shoot it over to Dale Jr. and then shoot it over to Rutledge Wood.
Right.
Let Jack tell you about what are we gambling on today? Woo!
Yeah. Well, I think I feel like if I'm an NBC executive or something, and I have scored Jimmy Johnson, Danica Patrick, and Steve Letarte for the race, and I go, okay, that's cool, but I need some glue here. And Mike Tirico fits that perfectly. So I'm looking forward to that. What does Mike Tirico say to Jimmy Johnson or to Danica Patrick or to Steve Letarte to get the juices flowing? So that it'll be cool.
I think it's going to be great. Looks like a great lineup to me, and it's chock full of people that know racing and not just open wheel. They know stock car racing. There might be people tuned into the Indy 500 never tuned in before just because, well, I get to see Dale Jr. and Jimmy Johnson and Stevie.
Yeah. Well, sir, let's do it. It's time to gas it up. Here it is. Oh, my goodness. I think this is the race. This is the one we've been looking forward to. This is the number 1. It's COTA. And it's pretty much guaranteed to rain, Sherwin.
I saw that. I saw it was like 100%, like the entire, till like Monday afternoon or something absurd. Which is, we talk about Austin over here on the East Coast, thinking about how like, oh, that's way over there. Well, it's not. It's actually not. Mm-hmm. It's on this side of the arid part of Texas. It's still very much in the not like the eastern swampland of Texas, but it's definitely in the area where it rains.
Yeah.
It's not El Paso.
Right. So I don't know. What do you think? Do you think this helps in terms of, okay, well, I got to tune in and see what the ish show is going to be, or hurts in terms of we really wanted to see what NASCAR at COTA is about, and I don't feel like, and y'all can see where I'm going with my opinion on this, but I don't feel like COTA in the rain is going to give us an idea or a great idea of what COTA in NASCAR can be.
Well, and I'm not going to beat the drum too hard, but there's a wild difference between racing on wet pavement and racing in the rain.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Stock cars can race on wet pavement, put on a really fun show. They cannot race in the rain and put on a good show. It's going to be a mess.
Yeah.
Particularly with some of the way those corners are designed for Formula One. They it's already it's going to be hard enough if it was 100% dry.
Yeah. We're gonna have 10-mile-an-hour turns.
Yeah, turn one is. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Talk about it now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it turn one is where it's. I mean, it's going to start right off. It's going to be like that. I don't know if you saw that karting video from the weekend where, you know, there's. I guess they're like 5 to 10-year-olds or whatever. They're all racing, throttle down, woo! And then the first guy misses turn one, and everybody follows him into the tires.
Yeah.
I mean, half the field is in the tires.
Yeah. And y'all need to look at a map. I mean, it is a gigantic straightaway. It's not the longest straightaway. There's a straightaway between turns 11 and 12, but it is a big straightaway, and then it is like a 160-degree turn into turn one. And to Sherwin's point, I mean, in the rain, you're what else can you do but follow the guy in front of you? And if whoever's in second place just loses it or overcommits or something, there's going to be 40 cars that go straight barreling into the tires.
Yeah, and it's downhill.
Make it worse, Sherwin. Just keep, and it's on ice, and it's
like and more than likely it's off camber too.
Mm-hmm.
Off camber, downhill, like you said, somewhere between 150 and 160-degree turn. It's not quite a hairpin, but it's close enough for a stock car. And they're probably going to hit that corner. They'll probably hit the braking zone at 145, 150 miles an hour
in
a 3,400-pound car.
Yeah.
Giddy up.
Yeah. Good luck, fellas.
Hey, we'll see y'all.
Well, I think I'll call them the smart folks here are the folks who have signed up or somehow gotten into one of the earlier races because it's supposed to rain all weekend. So, Kevin Harvick, Kyle Busch, Tyler Reddick, Austin Dillon, Cole Custer, some folks who will be in the Xfinity race, and then truck race. I don't think there's any Cup drivers in there, but Paul Menard coming back. That's pretty cool.
Saw that. When Xfinity made the commitment to go to Road America, that was all the talk was about how, Paul Menard grew up racing karts on Amber Turner tracks, and he was actually really good at it.
Mm-hmm.
And he proved his mettle in I guess a nationwide car at the time, that he was actually quite good at it. So this makes perfect sense for Thor Sport to shake down their trucks and see, do we have what it takes to compete at one of these road courses?
Yeah. Cup Series. We'll start there for a moment. Kyle Tilley, who's an IMSA sports car veteran, is going to make his Cup debut at COTA in the 78 Live Fast Motorsports Ford. He's going to make some additional Cup starts for the team later this season. Road America, Watkins Glen, and Indy Road Course. Pretty obvious trend there in terms of where he's going. But the IMSA Cup crossover there, I think, is pretty cool.
Those crossovers are always great. They all come with a lot of, what's the word? Hype's not the right word, but they come with excitement, but it always needs to be tempered. Especially now, the last 15 years, where every one of these guys that races every week is actually really good, and they're in really good cars.
Mm-hmm.
You're just not going to see, the ringer thing it's less of a thing than it ever was. Mm-hmm. But it could help a team like the 78, or the 7 or some of those other cars that are back there wandering around trying to figure out how they make sure that they get themselves in position not to have to go before NASCAR's board and explain how they didn't perform well enough to hang on to their charter if they've got one, or to, get granted a permit to lease one, or whatever it is, however that process works. And it helps them understand, were we on the right track building chassis? Well, I don't know how much of that matters going forward, because every single car that races this weekend is obsolete as soon as they leave COTA.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, a lot of those cars will get reused for the teams that can't afford to just build a new road car chassis every time we go to a new one. But for the most part, those cars are going to show up in the lesser series for 40 cents on the dollar.
Well, how about this one? For all the said heads out there that have been sitting on their wigs for the last 4 years, Boris said will be running the Xfinity race at COTA. How cool is that, Sherwin? I got all excited on this one.
Well, I'm glad he's going to be there. Boris always brings an element. His own personal brand brings an element.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, for a long time, he was the premier teacher of the Cup guys that didn't know what the heck they were doing on a road course, and he would teach them, and the old school style, right? The gas brake style. With using the clutch and stuff, and that's neat. I mean, I hope they put some cameras down there so we can see what people are doing with their feet. But Boris brings a brand. Boris said is a brand. That's never a bad thing to have him in a race.
Yeah. So I'll be looking forward to that. Seeing where we've talked about it plenty of times that there used to be the ringers and whatnot, and somebody will bring in somebody with good equipment would bring in Boris said. And nowadays, I mean, shoot, you've got Chase Elliott, you've got Kyle Busch, you've got everybody else who can do the left turn, right turn stuff. But it's a little different now, but it'll be cool to see him come in. The other name that I thought was interesting on here was Camden Murphy, who competes part-time in truck series, but also drives monster trucks. So that'll be kind of fun to see.
Why not?
Yeah. Get a monster truck driver in. And, this is like one of those things where, hey, let's get all the drivers for all the series. Let's include monster trucks. Why not? Bring them in. Of course, again, I don't want to take away from the fact that he's racing trucks, but that's I thought that was kind of fun.
Well, what's interesting about a monster truck driver is how many things they have to do with their hands.
Yeah. I've lost some internet and lost
make those trucks do what they do.
Yeah.
They're distracted by all. Wow, this is the longest outage yet.
Yeah, I know. And we're it looks like we're back. So apologies to everybody. We're in the green again. But you were saying how much they have to do with their hands.
Yeah, they're already used to all the distractions, right? Because they have all these buttons. They do have steer, and they're working all kinds of stuff, which is basically what road course racing is you have to work lots of different stuff. So with road course racing.
Yeah. We got a bit of a, I don't know what happened there. The bits all decided to be unsavory for us. So apologies to everybody who's listening in. But yep, totally. I get where we're going with all that. Let's do this. You know what? It's time. Oh no, it's not time yet. I had one more thing. Sherwin, you back with us? Oh, it's
yeah.
Okay, he's there. I was like, wait, it's just a Rusty show now. But no, how about this one? Matthew McConaughey will be the Grand Marshal. And I don't know. If he doesn't say, all right, I don't know. I think we have a failure.
Well, he got to do it at Homestead, I believe, before, and was a big hit.
Mm-hmm.
I would be shocked if in his that he would not do something from Dazed and Confused.
Right, right. Or any of the other 400 movies where he's let that one loose. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time to do some picks. And, I hate to say it, but Sherwin, having picked the fourth place, Byron, you have to go first this week. So why don't you give us your pick for COTA? Oh, boy. We might have lost him. Well, apologies, folks.
Oh.
All the bits, doing whatever they do right now. So, in shortly, I think for myself, let me see if I can think, because for me, I don't know. This was going to be one of those off the cuff, who knows what kind of picks, because who knows what's going to happen. If it's going to rain and if it's going to be crazy, blah blah blah, who knows who's going to end up there. I think I'm going to go this week with Mr. Austin Dillon. So, Sherwin, are you back with us?
I can hear you just fine.
Okay. Why don't you give us your pick before we head out?
Yeah, that was an issue to end this thing, huh?
Right.
One of the drivers doing double duty is Mr. Dinger, and he was the one that suggested that turn one was going to be a big problem for everyone, and he was talking about drive pavement. So I'm going to pick Dinger for colleagues entry and Cup, because he's also going to race on Saturday, and we'll have the experience of whatever this wet stuff is. And he already knows that turn one is a nightmare.
Right. Well, Sherwin, it's about time to shut this thing down. I'll go ahead and do it just so that we have all the recordings and everything. Y'all know where you can find us, ptmpodcast.com, at PTM Podcast on the Twitter handle and Instagram and everywhere else where you can find all your favorite everythings. As always, you can find Sherwin at Pregame Engineer and myself, Rusty Wallace, at Tailgate Mayor. We're gonna have some fun next week. We've got cool guests lined up and everything. We can't wait to talk to y'all then. Appreciate you hanging out. We'll talk to you soon. Bye. And wrap. You still got me?
Yeah.
I don't know what happened there. Oh, well, looky there. Comcast is reporting some issues in your area. Super duper. Yay. You go a year with no problems, and then suddenly, boom. So, I don't know what happened.
Is what it is.
Yep. Well, let's get this thing
part of the game.
Yeah. I am just putting in all the stuff to get this ready to upload, and we'll get it over and out and everything else. Sherwin, I think we probably don't have the bits for too much of an after show, so I'm gonna shut it down on the YouTube. Appreciate y'all hanging out, and we're gonna have some fun next week.
Oh yeah. I guess for the people that did hang on, David Smith from Motorsports Analytics.
Absolutely. Looking forward to that one, and we will talk to y'all then. See you later, YouTuber.